Different guy, that'd be great.
President Chen, we're ready when you are.
Thank you very much. Good morning. This is Kat Chen, Board President of the Oregon Board of Pharmacy. I will now call this meeting of the Oregon Board of Pharmacy to order. Today is Wednesday, August 7th, 2024, and it is 8:30 a.m. Board of Pharmacy meetings are conducted in accordance with the Oregon Public Meetings Law. Under the Public Meetings Law, governing body meetings are open to the public except as otherwise prohibited by law. The presiding officer has the authority to keep order and to impose any reasonable restrictions necessary for the efficient and orderly conduct of a meeting. Governing bodies are authorized by ORS 192.660 to meet in executive session in certain limited situations, including the consideration of information obtained by a health regulatory board as part of an investigation of licensee or applicant conduct. All official actions by the board must be taken by public vote, and the vote of each member must be recorded. Our mission: the Oregon Board of Pharmacy serves to promote and protect public health, safety, and welfare by ensuring high standards in the practice of pharmacy and through effective regulation of the manufacture and distribution of drugs. Our equity statement: the Oregon Board of Pharmacy is committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in its organization and for the public it serves. This commitment is reflected in board membership, agency staffing, the services provided, and its efforts to promote patient safety and ensure access to quality pharmacy care. Our actions outlined in our DEIB and affirmative action plans demonstrate this commitment. Following principles guide our approach: promote a welcoming, safe, and inclusive culture for people of all backgrounds. Foster an inclusive environment where all current and prospective licensees and registrants receive fair and unbiased service from the agency staff and board. Advance diversity and equity and access through culturally responsive service delivery that addresses the changing climate within the pharmacy profession. Ensure all patients needing pharmacy services are able to receive safe and timely access to medications regardless of place of residence, economic or social status, physical ability, ethnicity, or gender identity. We'll now call roll for the board and staff. For the record, when I call your name, please verbally acknowledge here. Board President Kat Chen is here. Board Vice President Rich Joyce. Here. Board Member Shannon Beeman. Here. Board Member Jennifer Paul. Here. Board Member Rosemary Evans. Here. Board Member Amy Crookbright. Here. Board Member Victoria Kroger. Here. Board Member Priyal Patel. Here. Board Member Anna Pindale. Here. Chief Compliance Officer Joe Ball.
Here.
Strategic Initiatives Manager Chelsea Dash.
Here.
Compliance Officer Cheryl Fox.
Here.
Executive Director Jamal T. Fox.
Here.
Licensing Director Chrissy Hennigan. Here. Compliance Assistant Chelsea Klingberg.
Here.
Sorry, my eyeballs are what they are. Compliance Officer Jane Lee.
Here.
Compliance Assistant Serena Munn. Here. Operations Manager Rachel Melvin.
Here.
Compliance Officer Brian Murch.
Here.
Compliance Assistant Tasha Pearson.
Here.
Compliance Officer Aaron Richmond.
Here.
Compliance Officer Gary Runyon.
Here.
Board Counsel Angela Hunt. Here. And of note, Board Member Hemmons will be leaving at 4 p.m. today. Regarding public comment, there will be an opportunity for public comment on Thursday, 8/8/2024. The board will not deliberate any issue or request during public comment, such as formal requests, issues currently under investigations, requests pending before the board or currently proposed rules. Public comment is limited to matters that were noticed on the board meeting agenda. Comments will not be allowed that are longer than the time allotted by the chair. Sign up to provide public comment. Email your requests to pharmacy.board@bop.gov.oregon.gov by 12 p.m. today. And a review of our housekeeping and meeting etiquette. Please place your microphone to the left if you are right-handed. I'm back to S words. To the right if you are right side if you are left-handed. It's simply bend the microphone towards you a few inches away. When it is your turn to provide comment, the microphone red light indicates that your microphone is live. When you are done providing comment, bend the microphone away as a signal that you have completed your statement. For proceedings, utilize Robert's Rule of Order, newly revised 12th edition modified for parliamentary procedures. We will continue to facilitate board discussions using the round robin method, and I will continue to utilize a board member checkoff list to ensure each board member has been called upon and has equal time to provide comments. If during your turn you want to ask questions, please direct your question to the Executive Director Fox so that he can immediately respond or delegate to another. Exceptions to this path would be if, for example, you have specific questions for agency staff seeking feedback on a proposed rule. In order to complete board meeting agenda items in both executive and open session, each board member has 3 minutes to provide comments. The matters to be discussed by board portion of the meeting will occur tomorrow around 11 a.m. We've set aside 30 minutes to allow each board member an opportunity to provide feedback, ideas, or topics for discussion for board future meetings. Board and agency staff, identify yourself as board or agency staff member, last name each time you speak. Silence all devices. It is extremely important that board members speak one at a time and directly into the microphone. Raise your hand when you have questions or comments. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and retained for public record keeping purposes. The board will meet in executive session for most of the day and anticipates resuming open session between 4 and 4:30 p.m. Please separate all recycling and place it in appropriate bins. We will now review board meeting agenda and ask each board member to provide any proposed revisions to the meeting agenda. Anybody have any questions or any proposed revisions to the agenda? There a motion to move to approve the agenda?
So move, Vice President Joyce.
Is there a second?
Second, board member Beeman.
Okay, board members, board member Chin, yes.
Vice President Joyce, yes.
Member Beeman, yes.
Board Hall, yes.
Board member Hemmings, yes. Board member Kirkbride, yes. Member Pinello, yes. Board member Kroger, yes. Member Patel, yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We will now introduce our newest board members, beginning with Executive Director Fox.
Thank you, President Chin. I have 3 new board members. The first one is pharmacist board member Amy Kirkbride, a registered pharmacist. Her term is July 1st, 2024, and will complete her term June 30th, 2028. Board member Kirkbride has over 25 years of experience practicing pharmacy in Oregon. She spent the first years of her career in community practice, specializing in immunizations and appointment-based patient care services before transitioning to ambulatory care practice setting. She currently works as a manager in clinical pharmacy services for Kaiser Permanente Foundation Health Plan of the Northwest, where she oversees a multidisciplinary anti-correlation clinic. She is a past president of OSPA and has served 4 years as a pharmacist appointee and chair of the Public Health and Pharmacy Formulary Advisory Committee, PFAT. She continues to represent pharmacists on the immunization policy advisory team for Oregon Health Authority. She teaches pharmacy-based immunization for OSU College of Pharmacy and serves on the preceptor advisory board for Pacific University School of Pharmacy. She has previously served in national roles for Phi Delta Chi Pharmacy Fraternity and on the Pharmacy Education and Leadership Institute Board of Directors. She was awarded the Bowl of Aegea in 2021 and resides in Tiger. The second board member, pharmacist board member Victoria Kroger, registered pharmacist, term July 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2028. Board member Kroger earned her doctorate of pharmacy degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in 2008. She is currently a licensed pharmacist in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and Oregon. As a Walgreens team member for over 19 years. She's worked in the capacity of a technician, intern pharmacist, pharmacy manager, store manager, and healthcare supervisor, and is currently a member of the pharmacy practice team supporting pharmacy affairs. She currently resides in West Lynn. And our last new board member is pharmacy technician member Anna Benetto. Term July 1, 2024 through February 16th, 2028. During board member Benetto's 18 years of retail pharmacy experience. She has worked for one of the top 10 chain pharmacies in the nation. She has spent 5 years as a lead technician, 2 years as a traveling technician, and now serves in a hospital outpatient pharmacy setting. She has been a VHS resource parent for 6 years and has a passion for patient care and community involvement. She has served on a Hispanic advisory board and Head Start board. Board member resides in rural Klamath Falls, Oregon. Back to you, President Chen.
Me, Victoria, and Anna, speaking for the board and agency staff, I wish to extend you a sincere welcome and make note in the board meeting summary of your official attendance as board members during a regularly scheduled meeting after your appointment by Governor Kotek. I would like to impress upon you and all board members the importance of being part of an administrative body representing the people of the state of Oregon on behalf of the governor. You are here solely to represent the interest of the people of Oregon. It is important to remember that action is taken when a board is in session and no personal opinions concerning board matters should be expressed outside of board meetings, or that extreme caution be used when doing so if you are confronted with this situation. You should never be influenced or pressured by pressure groups or groups having political or economic objectives as their goals. You should thoroughly understand the normal procedures for receiving complaints and then that they should be channeled through the executive director for the entire board's consideration. All powers of the board are defined by statute and we cannot expand upon them. For appointment to the Board of Pharmacy is one of the highest honors that can come to you as an Oregonian, and with it comes the responsibility, sacrifice, frustration, concern, and commitment. You will need to continually study the statutes and rules and maintain a contemporary knowledge of the issues confronting the profession and business of pharmacy that may come before the board. For attendance at every board meeting is important, and any planned absences should be communicated to the board president and executive director as soon as possible. Conduct at a hearing and the questions and remarks made during a hearing should be confined strictly to the charges considered in the complaint. Board meetings are conducted in accordance with modified Robert's Rules of Order. You or any board member may call for an executive session at any time, keeping in mind the limitations placed on such sessions by statute. Conduct of all board members affects the image of the board, the profession of pharmacy, and the governor. Diplomacy, tact, discretion, and decorum must govern each member's behavior while conducting the business of the board. At any time during this or any subsequent meeting, I would encourage you to Express any ideas you may have of the board's functions. Ask any questions, even though the answer may be obvious to others. See that all decisions be made in a fair and impartial manner. Refrain from introducing any political or economic matters. Expect criticism from the public, licensees, and registrants, and never engage in retaliation or act in an arbitrary manner because of criticism. Closing, I would like to congratulate you on your appointment as a Board of Pharmacy member and remind you that your growth and effectiveness as a board member will depend upon your personal initiative and effort. Welcome. We will now introduce 3 new staff members, starting with Executive Director Fox.
Thank you, President Chin. We have 3 new members of our compliance team. I'll start with Kay Klinberg, who's a compliance assistant. Kay grew up in a small town of Ohio, California, as a lover of animals and supporter of local theater. After studying performance arts in LA Technical Program, Kay moved on to teaching ballet and theater to children and working for nonprofits and cafes. Kay moved to Portland to explore the Pacific Northwest and is currently pursuing a degree in cultural anthropology. Kay is looking forward to new challenges with Board of Pharmacy, and when not working, Kay can be found discussing plot lines from their favorite video games, looking for dogs to pet, and finding new recipes to feed to his friends. Tasha Pearson, compliance assistant. Tasha was born and raised in Oregon, graduated with a bachelor's in science with a focus on anthropology in 2018. She spends her spare time exploring the nature of this beautiful state through hiking and camping. And Serena Ma, compliance assistant. Serena was born overseas, grew up in Oregon, lived in Las Vegas for a while, then moved back to the Great Pacific Northwest. She obtained her bachelor's degree from the University of Oregon and enjoys traveling abroad, running, being active, attempting crossword puzzles, people watching at airports, and spending time with family and friends. Back over to you, President.
Thank you. We will now have a discussion regarding the new Executive Director 360 performance review process with Sherry Lahr, Client Agency HR Manager, and DAS Chief Human Resources Office.
Staff Member Melvin, I'm pinging her to see if she can hop on this call.
Please.
Executive Director Fox, your introduction of you as staff. Talk a little bit about introduce the replacement.
Say that again.
In your introduction of new board staff, there is a replacement of someone. Could you mention that?
So with the, correct me if I'm wrong, so with the 3 new compliance assistants, 1 position was filled that the board requested. We went to the legislature this year. The other 2 would be replacing Kimberly and Elizabeth's role that was formerly with the board.
Member Hemmings, I'm specifically referring to the compliance officer. No.
Pharmacist consultant.
Board Member Hemmings, forget it. Because
Pharmacist consultant is what she's asking about.
the
Yeah.
public consultant, I thought that they carried to replace Jennifer. Sorry, my apologies.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's early. Compliance, well, I'll just say, just for the record, compliance consultant Gary Runyon has taken on some more additional duties to help us fill in for the pharmacist consultant role. We're currently recruiting for that role. More information will be uploaded to Workday very soon over the next couple of weeks as we go through that recruitment.
Member Hemmings, so compliance officer Gary today will be acting as the role of compliance. What is it?
Pharmacist consultant.
Pharmacy
Yes, ma'am.
consultant. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. Board Member Hemmons.
Right, Sherry has joined the call.
Sherry Lauer.
Sherry, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Good morning. I
And-
apologize. I had to reboot.
Uh-oh. I'm going to share my screen really quick and you can begin when you're ready. For those on the phone, this is mailing A that we're discussing.
Good morning, board members. I wish I could see you, but that's okay. I am here to talk about the statewide governor's expectations with respect to the performance evaluation for the executive director. I will be facilitating the executive director evaluation process on behalf of the board. And I just want to talk a little bit about it because this is a much different process than this board has done in the past. Not a much different process, just a different process. So this board had adopted years ago a practice to do a version of a 360 with questions that were created by the board itself as part of the review process. Going forward, the governor's office is really prescribing the performance evaluation at least every 2 years. So there's a new requirement that a 360 following this particular documented process and asking these questions will be required every 2 years. Many small boards and commissions are choosing to adopt this annually because there is a budget note that small boards and commissions are required by the legislature to conduct an annual performance evaluation. So the board can decide if they would like to use this model every year or use this every other year as prescribed by the governor's office. So what will happen is we ask for the executive director to put together a preliminary list of who the survey goes out to. The board chair and the board weighs in on who else you might want to include in the 360. And then the board would also provide any additional questions that they might want. And then we facilitate sending out the communication, gathering all the data. We provide a summary of the results to each of the board members a couple weeks in advance of the delivery to the ED. The ED, I would host a meeting in executive session to discuss the results without the ED's presence with the board. Then the board develops a brief summary, a performance summary, and then we deliver those results in the second half of executive session to the executive director. Then what happens is results will go to both the governor's office and Barry Leslie, our chief operating officer. And the executive director has a debrief meeting with Barry Leslie roughly about 30 days after the review process is complete. The document that's in front of you and was provided in the board packet is the governor's office expectations. This document is on their website, their strategic initiatives website. There are specific questions that all boards and commissions are required to ask. And Rachel's starting to go through those now. The board can ask additional questions. Our recommendation is not more than 5 additional questions. some are not asking any at all. So we have some boards and commissions just using this as it stands, some that are asking additional questions. Oftentimes it's specific to the industry. As an example, geology and mineral industries asked science-related questions that the board wanted some more information on about the work that they're doing, and it was less specific to the executive director and really about the business of the board. And that really is the decision of the board, how you would like to proceed with those questions. The rating, all of these are prescribed by the governor's office, so we will not make changes to the rating system or to these questions because these will be compared statewide with all other EDs, not just small boards and commissions. What Rachel's highlighting now, that's the budget note with the requirement for an annual performance evaluation for board and commission executive directors. I'm just sharing that for just documentation's sake, since that conflicts with this requirement of every 2 years. The calendar, the review schedule, the reason we're having this meeting today is the Board of Pharmacy is scheduled for November for the review period for the ED. And so really this meeting is to kind of work backwards with the goal date of delivering the performance evaluation either in November or December. We have a little bit of a reprieve because of the start date for Director Fox. And so we are okay if we don't make the November date, and we can go to the first part of the year, December or January, if necessary. Any questions that I can answer?
Go ahead, Board Member Beeman.
Board Member Beeman, could you please repeat you had made a statement about how small boards have some type of well, I'll say for lack of a better word, in place for doing this annually versus every other year or every 2 years, I should say. Repeat with that why we would possibly be inclined to do this annually.
So, Rachel, can you go back up to the legislative note? So there's a legislative note that small boards and commissions, and the Board of Pharmacy falls under this legislative note. It would be the board and the legislative note document,
Oh,
Rachel, further
yeah,
down.
sorry.
So there's a legislative note. So years ago, there were concerns related to boards and commissions not doing performance evaluations on executive directors and not go a little bit higher, up. One more. Yep, one more. Right there. And so the Legislative Fiscal Office did a budget note in 2005, 2007, requiring boards and commissions to do an annual evaluation. So boards and commissions have a different requirement than some of the larger agencies, and that is because of this budget note requirement. So several agencies, rather than having two different evaluation processes, for small boards and commissions, they're just adopting this same 360 and they're going to do it annually rather than having this 1 year and then something else another. So several are adopting it on an annual basis versus having two processes because you are required to do an annual review of the ED for this agency.
Member Beeman, thank you for clarifying that.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? This Board Member Chin? Any other items you wanted to mention, Sherry, before we say thank you very much?
Nope, there was no action needed. This was just for information purposes. And I work directly with the board chair in facilitating, and the board chair then works with individual board members as we work to implement the process. So there's no action for this meeting that needs to happen.
Hey, and this is Board President Shin. At what point do you and I meet about starting this process? Is there a time frame for that, or would you be sending me a thingy bob that said, hey?
So I will, about 45 days before the date of the board meeting is when I have my first meeting with you, and we spend about 15 days making sure we've got the list and the questions that you want. And then I take it from there. We need about 30 days for full implementation to customize it, send it out, get the survey results, and then send the presentation to each person. So it's about 45 days from when you want to deliver the evaluation that you and I would send an email to schedule time together.
Yeah. And this is Board President Shin. Given that there's a grace period because of the hire date, do we discuss as a board when we would like to have this completed so that, and then get back to you regarding that date?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that
So
would be
that should be
fantastic.
on our agenda about when to. Sorry, we have hands raised.
This board member Patel, Sherry, correct me if I would have misunderstood. So you said like we can also add question on the business of the board, not just the executive director. Did I understand right?
You want to be careful about what is asked, because the intention of this is for evaluation of the executive director. So I can share other questions that have been asked from other agencies. That might be a better way, because this isn't intended to be a survey for the board per se, but there are some questions that could be asked, and we can give you some examples about what has been asked from other boards and commissions. We just want to be careful because the intention of this is confidential, and this is meant to be for an evaluation. And so for public records and those types of things, this information does not get distributed in the same way other surveys may. And also, we need to make sure it's asked in a way that you can tease out performance, and that because oftentimes you'll get feedback that the director doesn't have control or responsibility for. So an example, if it's regulation based and there's feedback about concerns about regulations, that isn't necessarily appropriate feedback or feedback for the ED, because the ED doesn't decide those regulations itself, the board does. So thinking about the questions, ensuring that you can tease them out in a way that provides information that supports an evaluation for the ED. Because some questions, especially for agencies such as this that are regulatory agencies, you will get different feedback than you will get from a non-regulatory agency.
This board member Patel, thank you so much. That's helpful. And if you can share those questions as example, that would be helpful. And so it's my understanding that I think you're going to meet the board chair, and then probably board chair will ask all board members that if you want to add any questions, something like that. Did I understand right?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
President Shannon, if I can.
Yes, please.
Just want to remind the board on the docket, November 7th, which is a one-day meeting of the board, was already identified as a day for the review to happen and organizational matters of the board during that time. So if the board chooses to push that date to whether it be December or January, I would just put on the floor for the board to consider if we even need January 7th to meet. Because that was the day that was identified.
November 7th, but yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And so when we support President Chin, I'm not recalling if is there a time on our agenda today to discuss about when, or not today, but in the next day and tomorrow, when we would like to have this done as a board?
If you want to discuss that now, or we can bring it up tomorrow when I talk about the board meeting structure tomorrow.
This is Board President Chin. Is there any disagreement with keeping the November 7th date and going ahead with the performance, the 360 evaluation, knowing that I think that when you started on the 5th of October. Okay, well. Go ahead, Victoria.
Board Member Kroger, I would like a little more information, maybe from this group. I'm not sure if Sherry is the right person to answer, but what is the current annual review process? Is that what you were saying, is that we would be doing that at the November meeting? And is it my understanding correct that if we wanted to shift to using these same questions annually, is there action that we would need to take as a group to shift that process? I guess I just maybe a little more insight into what the current annual review process is and how this would impact that. Thank you.
I would be happy to take that.
Sure.
So there is a current adopted process from the board that a former board chair and the board had adopted. I don't have the most recent version, but I can send the most recent version that was provided to me by the board back then. The process is actually your agency is more aligned with this process than most. So this agency has already done something similar. They have done a 360. In fact, the spreadsheet example is one that was used from prior years. We used Board of Pharmacy as an example for the entire enterprise. The only difference is the Board of Pharmacy had its own questions that was asked. We gave a big guide of questions years ago that questions were selected from. This is just prescribed questions. So the process is almost identical to what you already had, except that this is mandated by the governor's office. The governor's office did not see the prior evaluations. There was not a meeting with the Department of Administrative Services. It was really within the preview of the board and the executive director. This really elevates that process. So when I send out the procedure and I can send you the examples of what was used in the past, you'll see a lot of similarities because your board adopted something similar previously.
Member Kroger, thank you, Sherry.
Mm-hmm.
This is Board President Chin. The question, I think my recollection is that there were a number of questions that we could choose from, and that there was a finite number that we could choose from. And I think there was maybe, I don't know if there was a monkey doodle poll regarding which ones everybody wanted to, or what was the most agreed upon questions as to how we got to the additional questions on the 360. But it would be nice to have those particular additional questions that we asked in previous 360s, just to give us a start on what we might think of for any additional questions. That makes sense?
Absolutely. I can give you the questions that were asked last time. A lot of them will be somewhat duplicate. And I do want to clarify, we did not set finite questions before or limits to questions. So that would have been a board decision. In the past, we did not have any limits on what questions or what could or could not be answered. This is the first time that we have a prescribed process. So I just wanted to clarify that piece.
This board president should noted, but you also had a comment early on about recommending not more than 5 additional.
Yes, for this survey. That's for this survey specifically, not your prior surveys. We didn't have limits on them.
I think that was a self-limit.
Got it. I will send that information to President Chin to disseminate amongst the board members. And it's just a reminder that any input is required to follow public meeting law. So that's just something to be mindful of as you're getting input into this process.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Yes, Board Member Hemmons.
Member Hemmons, so, the survey will be sent out electronically to each individual board member, correct?
So we recommend it go to all staff and all board members. We also encourage stakeholders as well. So whether it's business partners like HR, payroll, shared financial services, DOJ, associations, not association members, but maybe a president or vice president. Every agency board makes that decision. So an individual link would go out to each person. And we do use SurveyMonkey. We have a statewide license. We used to have a different system. We did not use SurveyMonkey previously for your agency. We used a company that we had purchased software. We no longer provide that. So we use SurveyMonkey for it and implement.
Member Hemmons, so if everyone participates in completing the survey, why doesn't everyone then have an opportunity to give input into which questions are being asked on the survey?
When you say everyone, can you clarify?
Yeah, so you said that the survey is actually sent out not only to board members, but board staff, community members, organizations, et cetera, et cetera. So my question is, if all of these entities are going to be completing the survey, why wouldn't they all be able to participate in the discussions around which questions are going to be added or not added? So for example, board staff would participate in that discussion and not just the board, including the other entities that have been identified.
Because this is a management's decision. This is a performance evaluation, not a general survey. So I want to be careful. We don't just invite members of the community. It would be folks that could weigh in on the performance of the executive director. So the performance evaluation criteria is typically a management decision based on the goals and expectations you have of the executive director and not necessarily the decision of stakeholders. And in fact, some of your associations or community members may actually have conflicts, or their expectations of the ED are in conflict with the ED can statutorily do. So it really is incumbent on the board to make the decision of the question, since it's a performance evaluation.
I'm board member Hemmons, so I'm still confused. So entities who may have a conflict still get to complete the survey?
That's your decision. That is a board decision. So some agencies are inviting the association, so that's a board decision.
Okay, so board member Hammond, so what you're saying is that the decision as to who gets the survey is made by the board or by your office?
By the board. We do not make, so the board and staff should get the survey. Outside of that, that's the board's decision.
Okay, so the survey sent out by your department to the board and board staff. And
This is-
any other entity that the board has determined is appropriate to send to.
Yes, correct.
But only the board has input into if there are going to be additional questions on the survey. Board staff doesn't get to participate in that?
Correct. That's a board decision on the, because it's about what you're holding the executive director accountable for. And so this is about their performance and what you're holding them accountable for. So it really is what your expectations of the EDR of a board, for the board.
But the board member Henry, but the board staff interact with the ED a lot more than the board does. So why wouldn't the board staff have automatic input into what additional questions would be on the evaluation?
Because typically that we don't involve board staff in the evaluation, making those decisions and evaluation process. It's not something that's been done before. I can certainly get some feedback, since this is from the governor's office, to see what their thoughts are on that, but that's not something that's in the process.
Board member Hemmings, it just seems to me that then the evaluation is skewed because you don't necessarily have the input of the people who are actually interacting with the executive director on a daily basis and probably has more insights than the board does about their performance. That's just observation. Thank you.
Member Kroger, did you have an additional question or comment? This is board member Chin. I understand the thoughts of board member Hemmons. Board staff will definitely have input because of the base questions on the 360. So there's definite input. Whether or not there is input for the additional questions. But I don't know if you've read through the pretty extensive 360 evaluation, but the staff will have an opportunity to come in and give feedback on the 360. It's just the process of additional questions that the board staff haven't typically been invited to comment on. No, you still hold the same thing, but just there is feedback, there is opportunity for comment, so just clarifying that part.
Remember him, and so with this discussion regarding whether or not to add additional questions and what the questions would be occur at the October board meeting?
I don't think so. This is a board member, board president Jen. Sherry, if we're starting this process 45 days, our board, it would not think trying to suss out additional questions in an October meeting would be kind of a day late, dollar short, but you helped me through that process.
Correct. We typically don't do that in another board meeting. That's done outside of the board meeting. Oftentimes it is the chair and vice chair. So we typically don't get the additional questions in a board meeting. That's managed by the board chair or board president. And I would like to go back that every employee would have the ability to answer all of these questions and the additional questions that are asked. There's also open-ended comments throughout, and staff have an opportunity to provide input into the open-ended questions that are below. Rachel, could you go to the open-ended questions just to show those as well? So all staff, all board staff will answer all of these questions if they choose, because it's not mandatory, and they have an opportunity to provide additional feedback here with these questions, aside from any additional questions you might add to this.
So board member Hemmings, I'm just trying to understand the process because I'm trying to understand how much time this is going to require. So it sounds as if there's going to be a meeting between yourself, the board president, and the board vice chair.
No. I meet with the board president, and then the board president decides then from there, likely with the vice president or coach. I support 10 boards, so there's different titles in each of them, so I apologize. And then the board chair makes a decision how to gather the input from there. So that would be up to Chair President Chin.
Okay, board member Hemmings, but you did say that the discussions around whether or not to add additional questions to the survey would have to occur outside of a board meeting. So that's additional time, which, how is that going to happen? Is that just going to be an email communication to the board and board staff? Well, board staff is not being included, so would that just be an email to board members saying, hey, do you want to add more questions? If so, which ones?
Every board is doing that differently. We don't prescribe that process because I have a board that has 44 commissioners. So not everybody, they have a different process. So it really is up to to President Chin. Some board presidents or chairs are making phone calls, some are doing emails. So it depends on President Chin, how you would like to proceed and the timing of those things. We don't prescribe that piece.
This is for President Chin. When you talk about phone calls and emails, I'm thinking about public meetings. I don't think it'll be phone calls. I think it'll be because of public meeting law, isn't it? Don't we have some process that we have to follow in terms of, like, we get the email, you can't respond to all. This is the question. This is, so am I correct in that it isn't going to be a phone call to each individual board member or an email to each individual board member? Because I think that's, I think we're not allowed to do that.
I will
There's a rule about that.
I will lean on your board counsel because every board and commission I support is made up differently. Some have executive committees and they can meet and have conversations. Some, depending on the board size, it's okay for phone calls to happen. So I would look to Angela to provide feedback on that piece.
Thank you. This is Board President Chin. I will work with our board counsel, Hunt, about how to work through the process of getting information from individual board members regarding or input on any additional questions, and I'll get that ironed out.
Sorry, I can't be more helpful on that piece. I don't want to give misinformation when it comes to public meeting law.
No, you're doing great, Sherry. You again, you are representing many different entities, and you're giving us what we need to start this process. And thank you.
Remember Hemmings again, question? Harry, could you, so when the survey is completed, survey goes to your, to Doc? And only BAF gets to see the survey initially, and the calculations and analysis is done at your department, correct?
So
Or some other entity?
so the analysis, it's Survey Monkey, so there's no real analysis. All
The initial
we,
comment section.
so all we do is take all of the information. We don't make any edits to the comments themselves, because we want to be mindful of public records, but also the integrity of the data. So we provide the summary report from the system, all consolidated individually to each of you and a copy to the executive director, in advance of the meeting where it's delivered. So it is sent from our office to each board member. Then after the board has an opportunity to review and meet with the executive director, then all of the results are submitted to the governor's office and to Barry Leslie, the chief operating officer.
Board member Hammond, so the report is not sent to board staff, only the board.
Correct. This is a confidential process because it is considered a performance evaluation, and performance evaluations are confidential and part of a personnel file. So it is not shared with staff. It's only shared with management and leadership responsible for rating the executive director.
This is Board President Chen. I just wanted to reiterate that we are getting this as confidential and not to be disseminated or even discussed unless we're discussing it in executive session.
Correct. In fact, all of the communication with the report will say do not share, forward, or discuss outside of executive session because it is a personnel document technically.
Are there any further questions? This is Board President Chen. Hearing none, I'd really like to get us moving forward. We're going on to 9:30 and really appreciate your time and expertise on sharing how to work this process, Sherry.
My pleasure. If there's no other questions, I can go off screen.
Seeing any
Thank
other
you.
hands? Thank you, Sherry. Appreciate it. We'll
You're
talk soon.
welcome.
All right. Okay, we're going to go on to recusal announcements. Prior to going into executive session, board members must announce that they are recusing themselves from compliance cases. Please state the case number. Do not state the name of the case and the reason for recusal as bias, direct financial, potential financial, or witness in a case. We'll begin with Board Vice President Joyce.
Board Vice President Joyce, I will be recusing from, point of order, did you say, case number or?
Number.
Case number 13, thank you, for, potential bias.
So this is Board President Chin. I'll read the case number for you. It's 2023-0521, 2023-0522 for potential bias.
That's correct, thank you.
Thank you. Is that easier for me to read this to each of you?
Board President Chen, I'm sorry to interrupt. Each person that's recusing has a sheet in front of them, and the appropriate numbers are, Board Member Kroger's is going to be different from what you have in the working agenda, so she needs to read off of that one. Thank you.
Board Member Kroger, you may proceed.
I will be recusing from case 2022-0662, 2024 -0461, 2022-0112, 2022-0218, 2024-0166, 2021-0761, 2024-0335, 2024-0341, 2021-0799, 2023-0736, 2023-1071, 2024-0210, 2024-0211, 2024-0389, 2024-0390 for potential financial impact.
Board Member Patel.
Board Member Patel.
Case number 2023-0249 and 0250 for potential buyers.
Thank you. Time is now 9:30 a.m. The executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.660, print 1-2 FL, ORS 192.690, parent 1, ORS 676.165, and ORS 676.175, which allows the board to meet in executive session to consider information of records that are exempt from law from public inspection. Representatives of the media and designated staff will be allowed to attend the executive session. Representatives of the media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the public back into the meeting. Is there a motion to move to enter executive session for the purpose of legal advice, review, and discussion of investigations and disciplinary cases at 8:31 a.m.?
Sorry, Staff Member Melvin, it's 9:31 a.m.
I'm sorry, 9:31 a.m.
So moved, Vice President Joyce.
Your second?
Second, Board Member Beeman.
Roll call, Board President Chin, yes.
Vice President Joyce, yes.
Member Beeman, yes.
Roll yes.
Member Hennons, yeah. Member Kirkbride, yes. Board Member Pinero, yes. Member Kruger,
Yes.
Board Member Patel,
yes. Thank you. Please wait while staff transitions the open session to executive session.